How's it going, everyone? Today I wanted to talk about why I purchased this little guy. For those of you that are unfamiliar with it, it's a Widelux. First was introduced to it through Peter McKinnon's video. I dug into it, saw all of like Jeff Bridges' really cool work. Ended up doing a deep dive onto eBay, found myself one. And in this video, I'm just gonna run through kind of like some of the quirks I've learned about it, some of the tips and tricks I've learned when shooting with it, simple things like how to load film, what to watch for, just the very basics. So Widelux F6, fully mechanical 35mm panoramic camera. One of the most distinguishing features about the camera is, as I'm sure you have probably noticed, is this swing lens design. Widelux captures 140-degree field of view by physically rotating this thing. The lens itself has a set focus distance. You can adjust the aperture with this little dial from f2.8 to f11, but the lens itself is set to focus right around 9 to 10 feet away. Here's where you rate your film, your shutter button, photo count, a little level, which is really important for this camera, this little dial to load and unload film and rewind it when you're done shooting. Flip it around and get behind it. This is where you load up the film, of course. Lock, unlock, and she'll come out. This is the back side of the camera. This is where you'll load up your film. This little dial will release and then lock it into place. Underside of the camera is pretty simple. 1/4 inch mount. This will release the tension on the film. All right, so we've gone basically around the entire camera. So when you wind it up, we'll do this nice and quick. Make sure that guy's level. If that's level, make sure your hands and fingers are out of the way. And then that's why I put these little Peak Design camera strap doobobs on it. And then, you know, you'll just lightly press that shutter button. It'll rip around. And then you have an image. That's a little breakdown on the camera. Let's get into loading film. Kent Mirror Pan 400, black and white. I think I'm drawn to kind of like the black and white vibe due to Jeff Bridges' work, but I think this camera also just kind of has like a cool nostalgic vibe to it. So lately that's what I've been shooting on is. All right, so we'll pull this film out. This is gonna be the correct orientation for it. I'm gonna pull this guy up. I'm gonna toss this film in here. It's the correct orientation, and then we'll lock that dial down. That is step one. So you can pull this out a little bit, feed it under this first little roller, push it up and under. Now you're gonna see it come around the little lens barrel deal, and just give that a pull nice and smooth. Make sure it's kind of falling in line, this little trough. I like to pull it out a little extra. Slide it in through this spot next, around this next barrel. Try not to hit these little cogs and advance it as I tap it a little bit. And then come around, and you can kind of continue to put pressure on the film and pull it this way. And then you're doing great. Line it up, continue to push it through, come up and under, or down and around this last guy as well. And you're done with the easy part at this point. So from this point, it gets a little tricky. Make sure that this dial is spun so that you can see this little slit. Pull the film a little bit more. Wrap this around. You can give yourself a little extra if you need. Slip it into that little hole, or that little slit. If you can see right there, that'll make your life a whole lot easier. And then if you can get it done, there's a little tab that'll fill into that little film hole. And there it goes. So I'm in that slit. I've got this little tab that's locked onto one of the film holes, and now I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. So you're going to continue to pull it through until this little roller is completely covered. I'm just gonna keep twisting that. Right about there is great. So now you know this is solid. It's not gonna slip out. All these little sprockets have grabbed those holes, so it's gonna continue to advance the film. And at this point, we can put the backpack on. So toss this guy on, set it in the lock position, and your film is loaded. So because we've already exposed a portion of the film, next thing we're gonna do is this top piece, we're gonna advance it. So we're gonna do a full turn, and then I'm gonna change this to 250, just a little quicker. Take a shot, and do that one more time. Take a shot, and now you're ready to go. So next photo you take will expose a shot, and you are now shooting with your Widelux on your Kentmere Pan 400. So that's how that's done. Sick. Okay, now that you've got your Widelux loaded up with film, you're ready to go shoot. Be patient with your first roll. I feel like I had a ton of buddies tell me that. My first roll, I'll flash on the screen here and kind of rip through some of them. Some of them I was stoked on. There were a few standouts like this one that I thought actually did turn out pretty cool. But one thing that I noticed for me is that in general, I was underexposing most of the film. And that might be due to my background in shooting more digitally, where like protecting your highlights is more important. Film, the highlights, I mean, you can push them pretty far and they can stay well exposed. So that was one thing that I learned pretty early on with this camera is, you know, if you've got your light meter and you're checking whatever it is you're setting, you're seeing, then whatever the aperture reading for what I was finding, I would give it a little more light than maybe what it was telling me to do exactly. By overexposing slightly when I would shoot, I think it would help a ton for my images that came out exposure-wise. So that was a big thing. The second big thing that I noticed with my first roll is a lot of stuff is framed too low. I was using this viewfinder quite a bit, and so I'd try to frame it up here, and I would try to, you know, compensate for it not being centered, and it's a little higher. Anyways, that compensation ended up just resulting in bad photos as far as framing went. So that's when I dug a little bit more into, hey, this is kind of the proper approach, being more focused on this little leveling bubble, and then almost like eyeballing it. So you kind of like keep it out in front of you, watch that level bubble, and then you're kind of just like sighting it with your eyes. Boom, fire. And those were two really big things that helped me, framing, exposure. But then with that, I also found that a lot of my photos were out of focus. Spent a lot of the shots on f2.8. That means your focus distance is a lot farther than maybe what you would assume. So at f2.8, it is right around 9 to 10 feet. So I was taking photos of subjects that were 4 to 5 to 6 feet away, and they were just all coming out soft, which makes sense. I feel like a good fix for this was I bought this Kentmere Pan 400 film. I rated it at 1600, and then I pushed it when I had it developed 2 stops. So that allowed me to put my camera settings as if I was shooting a higher ISO film, which kept me out of needing f2.8, and then I could creep into more of the f8, f11, you know, f5.5 area. And then that resulted in a wider focus range and more of my photos came out better. Those are a few key things. I made this little like checklist cheat sheet thing. I'll flash this on the screen now. I just saved this on my phone, and it's just like a good refresher when I'm out shooting with it to say, hey, am I doing all these things correct? So this is my second roll of film. I'll flash some of these images. And I was way more stoked on this. I feel like the exposures were a lot better. Focus was kind of like finally within a respectable range, I feel. And then the framing, just by making some of those simple changes, ended up being a lot more consistent. So yeah, the difference between first roll and second roll was night and day for me. I love this little thing. I'm excited to use it on more of my shoots this coming year. Hopefully this video helps. Hoping to do more videos in the future, kind of breaking down what I do and how I do it. So comment below if you have any suggestions on things you'd like to see. But yeah, that is the Widelux F6. So thanks.